There is a moment in every life when you begin to notice something subtle, something you once ignored because you were too young, too rushed, or too busy trying to make sense of the world. It usually happens in a small, ordinary interaction. Someone stands in front of you, maybe a friend, a partner, a co-worker, and you can feel something shift in the air long before they open their mouth. They inhale as if preparing to speak. Their eyes flicker for just a fragment of a second, and suddenly your body knows something your mind cannot yet articulate. There is a slight tightening in the chest, a drop in the stomach, or a quiet voice inside that whispers, "Something isn't aligning here." And the strange thing is, nothing has been said. No words have taken shape, yet somehow you have already received the message. This isn't imagination, it isn't paranoia, and you are not too sensitive, no matter how many times people may have told you that. What you're sensing is an ancient intelligence, one older than language, older than social rules, older than the masks we learn to wear as we grow up in a world that rewards appearance over truth. Long before humans spoke, we survived by feeling danger, feeling tension, feeling the unspoken intentions of others. The body was the first instrument of knowing. It learned to read the smallest micro-movements, the faintest disruptions in another person's energy, the incoherence between what someone felt and what they displayed. Today, this ability remains, quiet, often forgotten, but never gone. You may have noticed how a person's eyes hesitate for half a heartbeat before offering reassurance, or how their voice lifts unnaturally as if being pulled upward by strings, or how their shoulders stiffen even though their words claim relaxation. These are not accidents. They are ancient signals, patterns encoded deep in our nervous system. You don't interpret them by thinking. You interpret them by being, by the way your entire existence responds, like a tuning fork resonating with the frequency of truth or deception. Neuroscientists talk about micro-expressions, those involuntary flashes of emotion that escape before the brain can suppress them. They last only a fraction of a second, but the body sees them. Your conscious mind may miss it, but the deeper part of you, the part that once lived in caves and slept under open skies, never does. It still knows how to read what is real. Alan Watts often said that we do not truly hear the world with our ears. We hear with our entire being. The ears are only the doorway. The listener is the whole organism, body, feeling, memory, intuition. According to him, a human is not a fixed thing but an evolving process, constantly perceiving and participating in the subtle dance of reality. And when someone stands before you, that process receives not only their words, but the entire symphony of their being, their fears, their hesitations, their intentions, their contradictions. This is why a lie can never hide itself completely. A lie does not begin in the mouth. It begins in the body of the person telling it, long before they speak. It emerges from a moment of fear of being seen, fear of being judged, fear of disappointing someone, fear of revealing the truth of who they are. And fear always distorts the natural harmony of the body. It makes energy tighten, breath shorten, posture shift, gaze scatter. The body becomes the first witness to the deception, and your body becomes the first receptor. You may notice that when someone is about to tell the truth, their presence feels open, soft, transparent, unguarded. Their eyes meet yours without strain. Their breathing falls into a steady rhythm. The space between you feels clear. Truth has a kind of weightlessness, a natural coherence that your nervous system recognizes instinctively. But when deception forms, it casts a slight shadow, almost like a ripple across calm water. The person might smile, but the smile feels painted on. They might speak warmly, but the warmth doesn't reach the eyes. They may insist everything is fine, but a deeper part of you hears the tremor beneath the surface. And because your intuition does not rely on logic, you detect this misalignment instantly, without needing evidence or explanation. It's similar to noticing a single instrument in an orchestra playing out of tune. Even if you've never studied music, even if you can't name the note, your body knows something is off. It knows because harmony is a language older than words. Truth works the same way. Authenticity has its own rhythm, its own resonance, and any deviation rings inside you like an echo from a deeper place. Many people ignore this inner knowing. They override it with politeness, with social conditioning, with the desire to avoid conflict. They tell themselves they are imagining things. They explain away their own wisdom. But the truth is, the intuition that detects lies is not emotional instability. It is emotional clarity. It is your inner compass, finely tuned after years of witnessing people, losing trust, gaining it back, breaking your heart, healing again, and slowly learning the difference between what you're told and what is. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is the inheritance of every soul that has lived through enough pain to recognize the subtle tremors of dishonesty. Somewhere inside you know this. You've felt it, maybe with someone you loved, someone you hoped would be honest, someone you desperately wanted to believe. You felt the shift in their presence before the words were spoken. And afterward, when the lie eventually revealed itself, you realized your intuition had been right all along. That moment is not meant to make you distrust the world. It is meant to bring you home to yourself. Because the truth is this: the deeper you go into your own consciousness, the more you sense the movements in others, not to judge them, not to expose them, but because awareness always sees what it sees. And maybe you're beginning to notice this more these days. Maybe it's becoming harder for people to hide their intentions from you. Maybe you feel things too quickly, too clearly. Not because you are broken, but because you are awakening. This sensitivity is not a curse. It is the quiet gift of a soul returning to its own intelligence. When a lie hasn't yet formed, you're reading fear, not words. And once you begin to notice this intelligence inside yourself, something else becomes clear. What you're sensing in those moments isn't the lie itself. It's the fear that gives birth to the lie. It's the tremor beneath the surface that arrives before language, like a storm announcing itself through pressure long before the first drop of rain. A lie rarely appears suddenly. It is almost never impulsive. It is the final expression of an inner conflict, a struggle between who someone is and who they believe they must appear to be. By the time the words form, the battle has already taken place inside them. And your intuition doesn't wait for the conclusion. It feels the disturbance the moment the first spark of fear ignites. Fear has a texture, it has a temperature, it has a movement, and if you've lived long enough, if you've been betrayed, misunderstood, abandoned, or simply forced to grow, you begin to notice these things without consciously trying. Your nervous system becomes a silent observer of human fragility. You read the hesitation in someone's breath. You notice when the eyes shift slightly, not out of guilt, but out of survival. You notice the way a person organizes their body around avoidance, a tightening of the jaw, a stillness that feels unnatural, a sudden softness in the voice meant to hide a deeper tension. You're not reading minds, you're reading humanity. Think about the last time someone you cared about told you everything was fine. The word was perfect, the tone was neutral, the sentence was simple, but something inside you knew. You could feel the gap between their voice and their truth. And there is something almost heartbreaking in that moment, isn't there? Because you aren't sensing deception to catch them or corner them. You're sensing it because you feel their fear, their conflict, their attempt to protect themselves from something they believe they can't face. This is where your awareness begins to shift. You start to understand that most people don't lie to hurt you. They lie because they are hurting. Some lie because they're terrified of being exposed. Some lie because they fear losing love. Some lie because they cannot bear the weight of disappointing someone who trusts them. Some lie because the truth demands a version of themselves they haven't grown into yet. And in that fragile space, before the lie becomes a sentence, you feel their trembling. You feel the vibration of a soul that doesn't know how to reveal itself without risking pain. Alan Watts once said that people do not deceive others as much as they deceive the image they believe they must protect. The lie, he said, is not an attack on the listener, it is a shield for the speaker. It is the ego trying desperately to preserve the identity it has built, an identity shaped by society, expectations, perfectionism, childhood roles, and cultural conditioning. When Watts spoke of the ego, he didn't speak of it as an enemy. He spoke of it as a frightened child, always trying to hold things together, always trying to guarantee safety in a world that offers none. And when you sense a lie before it forms, what you're truly sensing is that frightened child inside the other person tightening its grip. You may wonder why you feel this so strongly now, more than before. Why you notice what others seem to overlook. It's because your own inner growth has changed the way you perceive the world. When you expand, when you become more authentic, when you stop lying to yourself, you naturally become sensitive to the subtle vibrations of dishonesty in others. It isn't judgment. It isn't criticism. It is simply resonance. A truth-tuned heart cannot ignore dissonance. It's similar to how a musician who has spent years training their ear hears the faintest flaw in a melody. Others may smile and enjoy the performance, unaware of anything amiss, but the musician feels the discord instantly, not because they look for it, but because harmony has become their home. The same happens in consciousness. When you have spent enough time unraveling your own illusions, the illusions of others become transparent. And when this happens, you may experience a strange shift in your relationships. Conversations start to feel louder even when no one speaks. People's energy becomes more visible than their expressions. You sense their intentions before you hear their stories. You can tell when someone is avoiding, hiding, performing, or protecting themselves. But here is the quiet truth underneath all of this. You are not sensing deception to catch anyone. You are sensing suffering. There is a moment when you watch someone begin to form a lie, and instead of anger, you feel compassion. Instead of frustration, you feel understanding, because suddenly you see the fragile architecture behind their behavior. You see the inner note that slipped out of tune. You see the wound they are afraid to expose. You realize this person is not lying to me. They are lying to the fear living inside them. And that realization changes everything. It softens you. It widens you. It dissolves the need to take things personally. It also explains why some people's lies feel heavier than others. It's not the content. It's the degree of internal conflict behind it. The pressure of a person who cannot align who they are with who they think they must be. You feel that pressure even when they smile, especially when they smile. You may have wondered why you sometimes walk away from conversations feeling drained without knowing why. It isn't the words that exhausted you. It is the emotional labor of standing in the presence of someone who is at war with themselves. It is the subtle weight of holding truth in a space filled with unspoken tension. And you may have also noticed that when someone is deeply honest, genuinely honest, the opposite happens. You feel lighter, more grounded, more connected. Truth has a way of settling the nervous system, calming the body and softening the heart. It restores coherence. It restores trust not only in the other person, but in life itself. This is why your intuition is becoming sharper. You are learning to trust what your body has always known. The world is full of masks, full of noise, full of illusions. But the body, the quiet, ancient body, still hears the truth beneath it all. It hears fear. It hears longing. It hears the tremble behind every half-formed sentence. It hears the soul, even when the words are false. And in that hearing, you begin to understand people not from the surface, but from the core, not from what they present, but from what they conceal, not from what they say, but from what their presence reveals. You are not sensing lies, you are sensing humanity. There comes a moment in your journey when something inside you changes quietly, almost without announcement. You begin to notice that the same signs that once made you anxious, those subtle shifts in someone's energy before they speak, those tremors that precede dishonesty, no longer unsettle you the way they once did. You don't tense up. You don't brace yourself. You simply observe. Because now you understand. You understand that deception is rarely about you. It is almost never personal. It is an echo of a person's inner landscape, a reflection of their fears, their shame, their uncertainty about who they are allowed to be in this world. And instead of feeling threatened, you find yourself feeling something far quieter, far deeper, compassion. This is one of the first signs that you're maturing at the level of consciousness, not in the way that comes from age alone, but in the way that comes from seeing into the core of life, into the fragile architecture of the human experience. You begin to perceive the layers behind someone's behavior, the wounds behind their defenses, the longing behind their dishonesty. And strangely, this makes dishonesty less intimidating. It becomes not a weapon but a cry, not a manipulation but an escape route from vulnerability. You may notice that when someone lies to you now, the first feeling is not hurt, it is recognition. a recognition that this person is trying to protect themselves from something they believe they cannot survive. The lie is not a knife. It is a bandage, a poorly chosen one perhaps, but still a bandage. And with this recognition, something softens in you. The need to react dissolves, the desire to expose the lie fades, because you know what lies beneath the surface: fear, insecurity, or the simple exhaustion of a person who has spent far too long holding themselves together. This shift is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the same wisdom Alan Watts often spoke of when he described the nature of human consciousness. He believed that truth and falsehood were not moral categories, but states of alignment. When a person is aligned with their inner being, when they are at ease with themselves, they naturally speak truth. Not because they are virtuous, but because truth requires no effort. It flows, it breathes, it has its own rhythm. But when a person is divided inside, when the ego is clutching its fragile identity, speech becomes a performance. It becomes strained. It becomes an attempt to manage perception rather than reveal reality. Watts would say the ego lies not to deceive the world, but to maintain its own illusion of control, a control that was never real to begin with. Understanding this frees you. It frees you from taking things personally. It frees you from the pain of misinterpretation. It frees you from the heavy burden of expecting others to be who they are not yet ready to be. And in that freedom, you begin to see something even more extraordinary. The more honest you become with yourself, the clearer the world becomes. Lies no longer hide in the shadows. You recognize them instantly, not with judgment but with clarity. And clarity is a gentle state. It does not attack. It does not accuse. It simply sees. When your inner world becomes quiet enough, you start noticing how truth carries a natural softness. It doesn't push. It doesn't demand. It doesn't require persuasion. It simply settles into the space like a candle flame that doesn't flicker. Lies, on the other hand, waver. They tremble. They flicker not because they are wrong, but because they are unstable. They require effort to maintain, and your intuition feels that effort before your logic does. This is why, as your awareness deepens, you begin to rely less on what people say and more on what you feel when they say it. The feeling is the truth. The energy is the truth. The presence is the truth. Words are only the surface. You've probably noticed that when someone speaks from an honest place, even if the truth is difficult, their presence feels grounding. You feel steadier just by standing near them. Their words may be imperfect, but their energy is coherent. It aligns. It resonates. But when someone speaks from fear or pretense, the opposite happens. The room feels tighter. You feel yourself becoming more alert, as if your awareness expands to fill the gaps between their words. Your body begins scanning, listening, sensing, not because you're suspicious, but because your entire being is attuned to coherence. This is the intuitive intelligence you were born with, the intelligence that was never lost, only buried under years of noise, pressure, roles, expectations, and the fear of seeing too much. But now that you are returning to yourself, this intelligence is waking up again. And as it awakens, you begin to experience something rare: discernment without fear. You no longer fear lies, because you no longer fear the truth they reveal. You see the loneliness in someone pretending to be confident. You see the insecurity in someone exaggerating their achievements. You see the wounds in someone who acts like nothing hurts them. You see the child inside the adult who learned to hide their softness to survive. And this seeing becomes a form of liberation. Because once you understand the nature of deception, it stops having power over you. The world becomes transparent, not in a cynical way, but in a compassionate one. You walk through life with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that nothing real can be hidden for long, and nothing false can endure. In fact, as you continue to awaken, something even more unexpected happens. People begin to open up to you more easily. Not because you demand the truth, but because your presence makes truth feel safe. Your calm makes their defenses unnecessary. Your acceptance dissolves their fear. Truth blossoms in the atmosphere of someone who does not judge. This is why silence, true silence, has always been the most honest language. Alan Watts once said, "Nothing is more honest than silence." And he was right. When you sit with someone without trying to pull something out of them, without needing them to be anything, without projecting your expectations onto them, their truth rises naturally, like a seed given sunlight for the first time. Silence reveals, presence reveals, love reveals, and your growing awareness is becoming all three. So when you sense a lie before it forms, remember this: you are not detecting deceit. You are hearing the quiet shaking of a soul that is afraid to be seen. And when you understand this, the world becomes softer, people become more human, and you become freer than you've ever been. No lie can harm you now because you no longer meet lies with fear. You meet them with understanding, you meet them with clarity, and ultimately, you meet them with the gentle power of someone who has awakened to the deeper truth of things, that what is false trembles, but what is true always stands still.